Hi, welcome to the fall 2025 semester at Austin Community College and to a course entitled Introduction to Psychology. I'm Dan Grandgard and I will be your professor this semester. I look forward to working with you. Let me begin by giving you a little bit of my background so you understand where I'm coming from in teaching this course. I'm known for backing everything we study up with a real life example of psychology in practice. And so I wanted to trace my own professional history for you so you know where a lot of these real life examples come from. First of all, I have 3 degrees from Baylor University. I have a bachelor's degree with a major in sociology and a minor in psychology. And then I earned a master's and a doctorate in educational psychology. While I was a student in graduate school at Baylor, I taught undergraduate courses in educational psychology. They're very similar to this course. My first real position as a psychologist was I was a school psychologist for the Education Service Center Region 12 in Waco. I was the only doctoral level school psychologist serving 81 school districts in 12 counties, if you can imagine. And so, I would get up in the morning and drive 50 or 60 miles out to some little town and give some IQ tests and things like that. That wasn't my idea of being a psychologist. And so I kept applying for other positions. One summer when I was an undergraduate at Baylor, I shared an apartment with a guy from Austin. And one weekend we were out of food and out of money. And he said, this would be a good weekend to go visit my parents. So I came down to Austin, immediately fell in love with Austin. I said, boy, that's where I want to live someday. And so I applied for any number of positions. I landed a position as a school psychologist for the Austin Independent School District. And I did that for 8 years. Every year I was assigned to 3 or 4 school buildings, typically an elementary school and a middle school and a high school. As far as high schools are concerned, I spent 2 years at LBJ High School, and I spent 5 years at Austin High. The only school I survived at the whole 8 years I worked as a school psychologist in Austin was Oak Hill Elementary. Yeah, I like to say I survived 3 different principals at Oak Hill. Principals like to staff their schools with their own selections, and so I thought it was remarkable that I survived 3 principals. All psychologists get to the point, though, where they want to do things their own way, and they decide they're going to start a private practice. And so I started a private practice in the evenings. I had a good friend who was an obstetrician gynecologist who let me start my private practice in his office rent-free in the evenings. So I started a private practice in psychology in a gynecology office. There's plenty of funny stories I could tell you about things I experienced in there. It got to the point, though, where there was a student at Austin High when I was the school psychologist there who, although she was in the top 10 in her graduating class, she wasn't going to be the valedictorian because she hadn't taken as many advanced placement and honors courses and things like that as other students had. And so she was angry that she wasn't going to be the valedictorian and started sending death threats to the principal and the assistant principal and people like that. Just so happened, the main assistant principal's first name was Jack, and one day she sent him a poem that said, "Death be nimble, death be quick, forget the candlestick, kill Jack." And then you always knew when it was from her because she had her own little logo that looks like this, that she would draw on the bottom of the note. Well, when you do that, you get to meet the school psychologist. And as you can probably guess, this young lady already had a psychiatrist on the outside. And so I started consulting with her psychiatrist, and he and I really hit it off, and he suggested maybe it would be better if I moved my private practice into his office. And so I did that. The good thing about being a school psychologist is you only work during the school year, so you get the summer off. And so basically, I would do I would work all day for the schools, and then I would do my private practice after school. Typically, I got off about 4:30, and then I would go over to my private office and see people there. And in the summer, I could do my private practice full time. And it got to the point where I was pretty busy. By the way, when I was a school psychologist, I also supervised school psychology interns from Texas State University down in San Marcos and from the University of Texas at Austin. Well, the psychiatrist that I started officing with started giving me lots of referrals for psychological testing and things like that. And it seems like whenever I hit it off with the patient, he'd say, "Why don't you go ahead and do the psychotherapy too?" A lot of psychiatrists are actually more into prescribing medications and things like that than they are into doing psychotherapy. And so, suddenly I found myself doing a lot of psychotherapy. By the way, this psychiatrist was the only child and adolescent psychiatrist on both the city and the state's health plans. So we had tons of people from every walk of life coming through our office. And of course, I got so busy in my private practice that I really needed to make a decision. Do I want to just do full-time private practice and leave the school district? And that's exactly what I ended up doing. So I started working full-time just in private practice. The psychiatrist helped me acquire clinical privileges at all the psychiatric hospitals in town, and so I started doing a lot of hospital work as well. This psychiatrist, after a number of years, however, he loved being a psychiatrist, but he hated dealing with insurance companies. And an opportunity came along for him to move to Dallas and be the chief psychologist for an adolescent psychiatric unit in a psychiatric hospital. And so he went to Dallas. Tried to get me to come with him, but I wanted to stay in Austin. So I continued on in private practice for a while. And then there was a large psychiatric clinic in Dallas who decided to open a satellite clinic in Austin, and they talked me into merging my private practice with that clinic, which expanded into a rather large facility. We had about 50 professionals working there, about a half a dozen psychiatrists, equal number of psychologists. We had licensed professional counselors, clinical social workers, nurses. The clinic was so big that we had our own day hospital and our own 20-bed inpatient unit over at Shoal Creek Hospital. So I became chief psychologist, director of intern training, and director of testing for the clinic. Some of the couple of the psychiatrists specialized in children. Most of them specialized in treating adults. There was one that specialized in geriatrics, and so I found myself working with the entire lifespan in one capacity or another. During that time, I also led inpatient group psychotherapy over at Shoal Creek Hospital and later at Charter Hospital. I did that every other weekend for 7 years, so I acquired a lot of experience doing that. Eventually, the clinic was bought out by a chain of clinics that had its headquarters in California. They closed down the Austin branch, which had fallen into financial problems mainly because of managed health care. And so I went back into private practice. I opened an office in Westlake Hills. And I did that for a couple of years. And then an opportunity came along to start teaching classes at Austin Community College. After teaching here a couple of years, an opportunity came along to also teach psychology courses at St. Edward's University. So I got to the point where I was teaching like 3 classes at ACC and 3 or 4 at St. Ed's and doing a private practice. I don't know where I had the time for that. It kind of came down to my practice was simply a Friday ordeal. And, the rest of the week I was teaching. And then an opportunity came along to teach at ACC and do counseling as well, and just work at ACC full time. And so I, for like 17 years, I did counseling and advising in what then was called the Office for Students with Disabilities. Now it's called Student Accessibility Services. And then the other half of the time I taught courses. But, between all the different settings that I've practiced psychology in, I will be able to back up everything that we study with a real life example. A lot of textbooks have examples of psychology in practice, but most textbook authors have never really been clinicians. They tend to be researchers and professors. And so, there'll be an example in there that maybe they heard about, or maybe they just made up. But that won't happen in here. Everything we study will be backed up with a real life story. And I think that'll help make the course come alive for you. Well, that's a little bit about me. After you watch this orientation video, I'd like you to send me an email. My email address is dgran, D-G-R-A-N, at austincc.edu, and introduce yourself to me. I'd like to be able to connect with students and know who I'm teaching. In the classroom, it's easier to do that, but online, email's sometimes the best way to do it. So, shoot me an email and tell me where you're from. Maybe you're not from Austin. Tell me where you grew up. Tell me what your major is, what your career goals are. Tell me what you like to do for fun. I've had some students actually make me a little video just like this one I made and send me a video, and those certainly have an impact on me. It's like, wow, this student put in some extra time just to let me, just to introduce themselves to me. That's also how I take roll. After a couple of weeks, I have to certify that you are in attendance. And the only way I can really do that is to know that you've connected with me in some way via email. Okay? All right. If you take a look at the course syllabus, if you go on to I hate to use the word website, it's Blackboard. And I might say right here up front, if you're new to ACC, it's not going to matter. But if you're like me and you've been around ACC for a while, Blackboard has changed. The Blackboard that we used for a number of years now has evolved into what they call Blackboard Ultra. And Ultra's a little, I think it's kind of quirky compared to the old one. The old Ultra, everything that we studied was down the left side of the screen, and anything that you clicked on that we were studying, it would open it in a new window or a new tab, whatever you want to call it. Blackboard Ultra, everything's across the top, and when you click on things, the topics go down the side, but they don't automatically open in new windows or new tabs. And I'll be honest with you, I spent hours and 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 hours this summer trying to convert my Ultra courses, my Blackboard courses from the last few years to fit the Blackboard Ultra format. If you run into any difficulties, please email me and I'll see if I can help work out the problem. My advice also is, if you ever get to the point where something doesn't seem to be functioning right, try opening it in a new tab or a new window, and that may do it. I think there's some kinks that need to get worked out in this Ultra program, and hang in there with me, and we'll get it. We'll get the whole thing tweaked eventually. Okay. Well, if you look at Blackboard Ultra, the course there, they wanted us to make it more jazzy than the old one, so I put a nice banner across the top there of part of my psychology library. Isn't that cool? Anyway, right under that, it says the journey is on. You click start here, and that will open up. Well, you've probably already done that because that's the only way you got to this video. But, the next thing under the video is the syllabus, the fall 2025 syllabus. And so, you might open that up and take a look at it. I'm going to go over it with you. First thing, the textbook is Exploring Psychology, by David Myers. He has taken on and by the way, it's the 13th edition. Dr. Myers has taken on in the last couple of years a couple of co-authors, Nathan DeWall and June Gruber. I wish you could meet David Myers. He is one of the neatest guys out there. I've been privileged to have dinner with him on 3 occasions. He's a professor, I guess emeritus now, at Hope College in Holland, Michigan. And a guy that has all kinds of energy and really connects with students. He rides his bike to class, even in the snow, in the winter. Plays hoops it up basketball with the students at lunch and so on. Great guy. And he's a good writer. I think you'll like the book. Now, in the past, I've used an edition called Exploring Psychology in Modules, which was slightly different than just Exploring Psychology, which is in chapters. The modules breaks the chapters down into smaller units. And when they came out with this latest 13th edition, it's actually in chapters and modules. And so the beginning on page 4 of your syllabus, page 5 of your syllabus, is a list of topics that we will be studying this semester. And the corresponding part of the text to read for the topic that we're studying is broken up into modules rather than chapters. In other words, there are things in chapters that we won't be studying. There's so much information in an introductory course like this that we just can't cover everything. It would take 2 semesters, not 1. So just be aware of that, although it's Exploring Psychology, apparently in chapters, we will be looking at how the chapters are broken down in the book into modules. The course is designed to be an introduction to both the science and the profession of psychology. There are psychologists out there like me who practice psychology. Like say, I don't want to go to somebody who's practicing. I want somebody who already knows what he's doing. But the practice of psychology, the profession of psychology, would have no credibility without the science backing it up. And so we're going to emphasize research and science as much as we are applying that science to the profession of psychology, okay? The course will assist you in developing a foundation of basic knowledge in order to pursue further studies in specific areas of psychology. We'll study topics like learning, memory, sensation and perception, personality, lifespan development, the biology of behavior. We'll study stress and health, psychological disorders, social psychology, research methods. We'll also take a look at my own personal favorite topic, which is states of consciousness, where we get into things like sleep and sleep and dreams and things like that. And then we'll also study psychotherapy. Okay? So I think you'll discover there's something in here for everybody. At the end of every semester, I always have a favorite topic survey I like the students to fill out, where they have to list in order what their favorite topic was and their next favorite topic and then their next favorite topic, all the way down to their least favorite topic. And what I would tell you is everybody in the class probably will have a different favorite topic. So there's something in here for everybody. I think you'll find that the general topic of psychology will apply to just about any major out there. A lot of undergraduates will major in psychology, and then they might go to business school or law school or medical school or wherever. But there's almost no occupation where you can't apply the topic of psychology to it. Okay. Okay, let's talk about the course requirements. If you take a look at the first page of the course syllabus, number one, read the textbook. Technically you could probably get by without even buying the textbook. The textbook is there. I'm not going to read the textbook to you. I'm not going to test you on the textbook. The textbook's there to help you better understand all the material that I introduce to you through lectures and so on. And so that's the main purpose of it. I always had one pet peeve when I was a student, actually two, but I'll mention them both. One was I was never very good at outguessing professors regarding what was important to read, in a textbook and, what's going to be on the test kind of thing. Well, I've taken the guesswork out of it for you, beginning here on page 6 of your course syllabus. I have listed specific learning objectives for each topic that we study. And the corresponding modules that explain the information that I'm also going to be teaching you are in parentheses next to the learning objectives for that topic. So when you read the book, if you want to know what I wanted you to get out of the book, it's this stuff that's listed in the learning objectives. Again, beginning on page 6 of your course syllabus and going on through page 9 of the course syllabus. So study the learning objectives for the topic before you do any reading. And that way you'll know what I wanted you to get out of it. Anything else that you read that you found interesting, well, that's for your own interest. But if you're like me and you want to know, is this information that I might need for the test or something? Well, it's the stuff on the learning objectives. That's the stuff to underline and make asterisks and notes in the margins and all of that kind of stuff. Okay? All right. That was one of my pet peeves. Number 2, expectations course requirement is to regularly check the announcements on Blackboard. And, that, of course, is that tab at the top where it says announcements. If you click on that, anything I want to communicate with you, I will do through the announcements tab on Blackboard Ultra. If it's super important and I want to make sure you saw it, just in case you never got around to clicking on the announcements page, I will also send an email to everybody of what that announcement is. Okay. But I would check the announcements thing every time you log on to this course in Blackboard, just to see if there's anything there that's new. Point number 3 on the first page of your syllabus: exercise self-discipline. Try to keep pace with the suggested daily course timeline. Because this is what we call an asynchronous online course. It doesn't meet on certain days at certain times like you would in the classroom or with a synchronous online course. Nevertheless, I've taken the liberty to break it up as if it were a Monday, Wednesday class. So beginning on page 5 of your course syllabus, I've shown you what topic I will be covering on what day. So, for example, the first day of class is August 25th. That's when the semester officially starts. And hopefully today you are reviewing the syllabus and the course requirements. For Wednesday of this week, ideally, we will study psychology as a profession and a science. I will have a lecture there for you on Blackboard. There will be PowerPoint slides. There will be an audio lecture, and so on. And in preparation for that, you might read modules 1, 2, 37 and Appendix C's A, B, and D in your textbook. Then, if this were a Monday, Wednesday class, we wouldn't have class the next Monday because it's Labor Day. So, the course syllabus is set up for then the following Wednesday, we will begin a study of neuroscience and behavior. And the corresponding modules are 4, 5, and 6 that you should study in preparation for that topic. So you can see here on pages 5 and 6 what topic I will be introducing on what day. If I feel you're starting to fall behind because you're not completing tests on time and handing in assignments on time and that sort of thing, I will attempt to contact you first. But after that, I have the option of just dropping you from the course. And I will do that because if you're missing assignments and that sort of thing, not making deadlines, you're in danger of not passing the course. And I don't want anyone to have that happen. So, if in my opinion here on number 3, if you've fallen significantly off the suggested pace, I'll make an effort to contact you before I withdraw you. The next item on course requirements is that there will be 4 examinations. And those tests, the dates of those tests are on the recommended course daily outline on pages 5 and 6. The tests will be multiple choice, maybe some true false, but mainly multiple choice, and you will have a week to complete the tests. So if you look at on page 5, the test 1 will become available to take beginning Monday, September 22nd. You have to have completed it by the following Monday, which is September 29th at the end of the day. End of the day as in 11:59 p.m. What I would tell you, though, is you really ought to try and take the test the first day that it's made available. Because if you don't, if you put it off until the deadline, then you're hurrying up to get it finished. And now you're way behind, because I have, and the rest of the class has moved on to the next topic and the next topic. And so now you're several weeks behind in your studying. This can easily happen with an asynchronous online class. So please try and maintain your pace. So, just as a for instance, test 1 will cover psychology as a profession and a science. It'll cover neuroscience and behavior and developmental psychology, including prenatal development, childhood development, and adolescent and adult development. There's really no reason not to do well on tests for several reasons. First of all, these learning objectives you can use as test review questions. In addition to that, I will post test review questions on Blackboard Ultra. I will also be available during my office hours, and if you look on page 2 of your course syllabus, those will be held through Zoom on Blackboard Ultra on Monday evenings from 7 until 8 o'clock at night. So in other words, you can come during my office hours on Zoom, and anything you don't understand, you can ask me questions. I can help you master the material. If those office hours don't work for you, send me an email regarding when you are available, and we'll connect somehow, okay? Via Zoom. The other pet peeve I had as a student, besides not being able to outguess what was important, my other pet peeve was professors who went on and on about some topic forever, and then there were 1 or 2 questions on the test about it. And then something we barely covered, there were all kinds of questions about. That will not happen in this class. What's emphasized in the topics will be emphasized equally on the tests, okay? If you have a disability and require special accommodations for this course, please see to it that I get a copy of your accommodations letter early on so that I can make appropriate instructional plans. The other course requirement is everyone needs to read a psychology-related book. In the syllabus, I say a pop psychology book. It could be a pop psychology book, or it could be something more in-depth. But I have to approve the title, and everyone in the course must read a different book. So maybe you lucked out and over the summer you read a book that would qualify for this report. In that case, send me an email requesting that I approve your book. There's a link on Blackboard Ultra to all the books that have already been taken by classmates. So you can check that list to see if someone else already has had that book approved, and you're going to have to find something else. The report will be submitted through Blackboard. It will be screened for plagiarism, and it should just be one page, single space typed. You can play with the margins. You know, you can go down to about size 8 font if you want. I can see perfectly well down that small even. You can play with the margins. Somehow you can fit it into one page. And the report, and there's sample reports here on Blackboard Ultra for you to take a look at. But there should be a bibliography entry where you've got the name of the author, the year the book was written, the title of the book, and then the name of the publisher. Then there should be a section that has information about the author. What I want to know is, how did the author become an authority on this topic? You know, where did the author get his or her training? Where have they worked? How did they become an expert on this? There's too many of these pop psychology books have been written by people who don't really have any credentials. By the way, one book I've outlawed and I will never approve is Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. It was written by Dr. John Gray, who had a mail-order doctorate from somewhere in Canada that has since been shut down. It's all just his opinion. You know, I don't want a book like that. If you want to read a book that really gets into the differences between men and women, read The Male Brain or read The Female Brain, both by Lou Ann Brisendine, who's a physician, and these are relatively small paperbacks, and literally half the book is a list of references backing up everything she says. You know, if you look at Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, there's not even a bibliography in the back. It's just all his opinion. He just made it all up. He's laughing all the way to the bank. But I want you to read something that's credible. And so when you're looking for a book, one of the first things you should look for is there a list of references in the back? Because without something like that, it's very questionable whether what they're talking about has any validity to it at all. Looking on page 10 of your course syllabus, it suggests a number of things that you should consider when trying to select a book. The author should be qualified. The book should be based on sound scientific theory, not the author's hunches, pseudoscientific theories, or armchair observations. The book should include evidence of the program's effectiveness. These books like Overcoming Depression in 3 Hours, seriously? I don't know that a book like that really amounts to anything. The book should not promise the impossible. There's a book out there called Toilet Training in Less Than a Day. Really? I think it's out of print, thank goodness. The advice should be organized in a systematic program, not just some vague pep talk on take charge of your life or something like that. So, I have to approve the book, and I need to have approved your title. So I need to have approved your book title, your choice, by the day of the first test. Okay? And that's September 22nd. The sooner you get it approved, however, then I can be under the assumption that you're actually reading it. The book report itself is due on November the 13th. Okay. One other thing I might mention is that each of the exams will also have a bonus essay question. And this is something I will email to everyone. And if you choose to do the bonus essay, it's typically worth 5 extra points added onto your test score. Now, this is not extra credit, okay? This is bonus points. Extra credit is something I don't offer. Extra credit is something that some people allow when your average is lower than you want it and you're trying to boost your grade. That's not what this is. This is bonus points added on to a test the day you take it, okay? If you choose to answer the bonus essay, you will need to email me your response before you take and submit the actual objective question test, okay? This is bonus points. It's not extra credit. If you look on page 4, you'll see the grading key. 90 to 100 is an A, 80 to 89 is a B, 70 to 79 is a C, 60 to 69 is a D, and less than 60 would be failure. Your grade in the course will be your average on the 4 tests and the book review. The book review counts the same thing as a test. And on the top of page 4 there of your course syllabus is an example of how a grade is calculated. Okay, a few other things. If you go back to page 3, just wanted to say a few things about academic responsibility and things that are totally unacceptable in my class. And one is plagiarism. You can quote other people to your heart's content as long as you put quotation marks around it and document where that information came from. Plagiarism is taking somebody else's ideas and trying to pass them off as your own. Please don't copy some book report from somewhere and think you can get away with submitting it as a way to meet the course requirements. I haven't had a lot of problems with students cheating over the years, but I've had a couple of people submit book reports that they didn't write. I remember this one guy one semester. I called him into my office. I said, I need to talk to you about your book report. You didn't write this. Oh, yeah, I did. It's all my words. I said, no, it's not. I said, let me show you. I showed him on my computer. Let me show you on my computer where it is. You took it right off of the internet. He's like, yeah, I admit it. I didn't write it. I said to him, how much did you pay for this? He said $30. I said, for $30, you should have bought an A report. This is a C report. And now that I know you bought it, it's an F. Please don't do anything so foolishly as that. The purpose of this assignment is for you to explore this topic in a more personal way. And, ideally, you should read some kind of psychology-related book that will help you in your own walk through life or steer you in the direction of a certain occupation. There are books I can recommend that I think are fantastic. This one comes to mind, The Psychology of Money. It's by Morgan Housel. And, he's a columnist for the Wall Street Journal. So, he's a journalist. Not all these great books have been written by psychologists. A lot of times journalists really do their homework in order to back up everything they say. And, if you look at this book, the back of it has several pages, looks like 4 or 5 pages of references to back up everything that he's saying. The subtitle is Timeless Lessons on Wealth, Greed, and Happiness. So, this is the kind of book you might want to read. Might be something more technical. I've got some links on here with other books I've also recommended, but you're free to pick out your own book. I just have to approve of it. The deal is I won't approve any book I don't think will get you a good grade. So, this comes into another thing, and that is my policy on generative artificial intelligence. Use of this in this course is not required or accepted. Course learning objectives do not include learning how to use GAI, and any attempts to submit work which has used GAI tools will be rejected. All written assignments, whether it's your book report or whether it's a bonus essay. By the way, these essay questions tend to be rather personal in nature, and that's intentional because whenever I asked technical things in the past, people tried to get by submitting some kind of artificial intelligence thing that they just found. Well, I'm not grading you on your ability to find things. I'm grading you on your ability to think and to give me your ideas and apply things to your life. That's the whole purpose of written assignments. You know, the bottom of page 3 in the course syllabus, all written assignments should be the result of your own thought and self-expression. The purpose of higher education includes teaching you to think, not simply look things up. You know, this information age, smartphones and all of that, all people do is look stuff up all the time. And guess what? Not everything out there is accurate. No, not hardly. This applies to objective test questions as well. No cheating. No going online with a classmate and saying, well, let's do this test together. You know, you do the even numbers and I'll do the odd numbers, and then we'll change. You know, if I find out somebody's doing something like that, that test will not be accepted. This is serious stuff in academia. So get serious about it. No cheating, no fabrication, no collusion. I've been around a long time. I'm not stupid. I can tell when somebody's not doing their own work. And I won't accept it. Okay? Let's talk about a couple of other things. My own teaching philosophy is I like to have fun. I feel like if I'm not having fun, if I'm not enjoying what I'm doing, then the students aren't enjoying it either. I like to infuse lectures. I'm on the bottom of page 2, by the way, the course syllabus, with real-life examples of psychology in practice. I like to maximize use of media to illustrate main points of discussion. These topics that are on Blackboard Ultra, I have video clips, I have audio clips, I have PowerPoint slides, I have video lectures. I have all kinds of things. I have handouts that you will need to read. It's not just one kind of thing. I try to make it as much like being in class as possible, even though it's an asynchronous course. I love a good debate. I love a good argument. Feel free to email me anytime and challenge anything that we cover in the course. I enjoy that sort of thing. I want to make the material relevant to your vocational and personal aspirations. And so again, that's why when you're done with this, please send me an email and introduce yourself to me, okay? I want to identify ways that psychology permeates virtually every aspect of our lives. Well, that's it. That's the orientation, if you will. I look forward to getting to know you personally and to exploring psychology with you.